And this is the What's New in Operations dashboard for ArcGIS session. My name is Pat. I'm presenting with Sandra, coming to you from Ottawa, Canada. And we're very happy to be here. My wife is minus 15 degrees this morning. I told her that I walked here in my t-shirt, so winter me today. So we're going to spend the next hour explaining to you what's been going on with Operations Dashboard sort of since we last met last year here. How many people here are new to Operations Dashboard, never used it? Okay. You'll probably pick up a few tips here. You'll how the product works, but this session is intended to sort of focus on what is new. I did want to give a shout out to my colleague Derek Law, who is in the audience today. We've got his Twitter handle up there. If you ever want to see good examples of dashboards in use, you can. Derek's really good for posting those. So let's get started. Just a simple slide to get us started here to sort of position this product in your head, what its intended purpose is and who it's for. So Operations Dashboard is a configurable web application. It provides location for data through the use of a robust set of visualizations. The purpose of the application is that we focus on authoring and viewing dashboards. So if you think of the ArcGIS information model, you're used to authoring maps, you author scenes, you can create web applications, and now as part of the information model, you can author dashboards as well. Dashboards feature a powerful, flexible layout, so all of your data is on a single screen at the same time. Like I said previously, best suite of visualizations. And through the configuration experience, you can configure the interaction between these visual elements so you can create a powerful analytic product. The data that we show can be anything. It can be your people, your services, your assets, your events. The premise of dashboards is that they facilitate understanding by providing the information at a glance. So sort of term that we use internally to explain it is it's explanatory analytics, as you're giving context to your data, but on a single screen. So transitioning into the what's new, I just want to kind of show this slide in that it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and this is something from one of our users who posted it. But the reason why I wanted to show it is because this is David saying, this was his thought when he started to use Operations Dashboard. But we wanted to use it in our presentation to say, this is what happened to us this year after we released the application in terms of seeing all the wonderful new use cases coming out of the woodwork. We, the name of the product is Operations Dashboard, and yet many of the dashboards we're going to show you go beyond the Operations Center. So that's the first thing that we're going to focus on in our What's New session. It's the patterns of use. And rather than just show you a couple of them on a slide here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out and I'm going to go and show you some of these dashboards that we've found along the way this year. And for each of these dashboards, we'll sort of show you what's unique or different about them, or some of the design aspects that we like about them. So here's a dashboard that's monitoring, a dam and flood situations somewhere in South America. And so some of the things that we like is, good set of colors, clearly articulating the metrics that are of interest, robust use of the dashboard's layout by, stacking things, but also taking advantage of the ability to sort of create your own custom little view in here, and that we do support rich text and people creating nice little layouts and stuff like that. So that's the first dashboard. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. We have a lot of content to get through today. Here's another interesting dashboard. And this one is from New Zealand. And the thing that we like about this, or what's interesting about this one, and it looks like some of them aren't actually working, these are live feeds from all these different points across New Zealand. And, they embed them in the dashboard and they can monitor this. But what this dashboard also does is it provides links to other dashboards I'll just open the first couple of them here. And so you can start to see that through using this dashboard, this organization in New Zealand is showing off all sorts of different things. So you can link to your near real-time highway dashboard, your other alerts kind of thing. So really interesting use case here with all of their indicators and stuff like that. You can see down here they've embedded radar feed, so that's pretty cool. Here's a dashboard. Croatia. I think the World Bank prepared this, or it was prepared for the World Bank. And sort of the use case here is that they're effectively using dynamic filtering at runtime to sort of change the view of the dashboard. So just by changing the dashboard a little bit, they can start asking it visualizations change to reflect the current state of the filtering. So that's pretty cool too. Here's a dashboard that's showing something about bike paths in I believe this is France. But the thing that we like about this is when they've used pie charts, they've actually done it in an effective way. There's nothing worse than a pie chart that has too many slices in it. You can't tell what's going on. So what they've done with this pie chart is they've actually, they're very low number of slices, but they've also hollowed out the middle. They've turned the pie chart into a donut chart just through some of the config settings, and they're able to articulate their point more effectively that way. Here, this is a dashboard for the City Cancer Challenge. A bunch of cities got together and they wanted to show off some key performance indicators around that topic. Here what we're showcasing is sort of the integration of dashboards or its ability to take advantage of sort of the latest and greatest with what's going on. In the plenary this week, they showcased how easy it is to create your own custom base map through some simple styling. So here, these people, through simple styling, have created a really powerful document. It's very clear what they're trying to get across. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's really nice. People are using dashboards to tell their stories. So here, or as part of their data storytelling. So here, Tempe, Arizona has written, or in Tempe, Arizona, they're doing wastewater testing for opioid contamination. And, they've got a big, long narrative around that. But as part of that, they link out to a dashboard where you can start to actually see, you can tell your story, but it's like, hey, you know what, you want to see some more information about it, you can do this. So that one's pretty cool too. We see this pattern a lot. These are dashboards that are embedded into story maps. They sort of, the pattern is the use of story maps to sort of be a quote unquote catalog of applications. So here in a dashboard, you can see lots of very interesting things. They're showing their floods, they're showing their earthquakes, their shelters, their fire. Just tremendous amount of information in one document here. But then also, by flipping through the tabs, sort of you get it all in one thing here. Sort of along the same idea of storytelling with data, and then also with story maps or a different use of story maps. Here, this is the Thames Water Authority, and they're telling a story here, explaining what a riverfly is and all of this other good stuff. But at some point, as part of that narrative, they need to actually show some statistics off. So what they're doing here is they've embedded a dashboard. They've taken advantage of the ability to style it however they want, and you can sort of see some of the metrics that are going on around their study, and you can filter it at runtime to be on certain dates and that kind of thing. We're seeing a lot of dashboards embedded into community-facing web pages. So this is actually produced by Esri Solutions Group. And it's available to you as a template. If you go to solutions.arcgis.com, you can get this. And here they're just showing a bunch of their key performance indicators, whether they're on target, whether they're being monitored, or whether they've missed their targets. And they're doing that across a lot of different sort of categories. So, economic opportunity within public safety. So they're they're able to do this in sort of in terms of one-stop shopping. So dashboards are embedded here. Again, good use of our styling capabilities to make it look really aesthetically pleasing. Along those lines, City of Brampton, a much different type of dashboard, but here through their public-facing hub, they've come in and they've embedded some dashboards into their applications too. And these are actually they're dynamic in that you can change the view of the metrics sort of on the fly and as you go. This one is from the City of Baton Rouge. It's 311 Citizens Request. And again, it's along the lines of showing some key performance indicators. They've created this one. And I wanted to draw some attention to this pattern of use because although it's really powerful, we want to sort of offer this with a word of caution, is that they've taken the ability to stack elements within a dashboard, and what they've done is they've sort of created multiple pages of dashboards here. And doing this, as you go through all of this stuff, this is really, really powerful. But you're adding more and more elements, so there's more and more data being queried to the point where this on a slow network connection can be slow. So, it's kind of like dashboards are great for showing this information, but you can reach a tipping point. And actually here they've realized that. And so in the little sort of hidden here, they just say, due to the large amount of data being processed, please allow the application a moment to load. So they found that out. So that's kind of interesting that they did that. I forgot to bring my little dongle today, but one of the things that we did this year is we made dashboards available for your phones. Sandra will be talking a little bit about that in a little while, but it's one of those things that if you author your dashboard specifically for use on the phone, it'll just work on the phone. This isn't a screenshot. This actually is a live dashboard. It's just in the browser's developer tools to show you what it would look like on a phone. We're showing this example here. Again, it's a story map, but this one is actually taking advantage of something else that's new this year. And again, we'll demo it later, or go into details of how it all works, is URL parameters. So by navigating your story, you can actually change your dashboard on the fly and through the use of URL parameters. So we'll come in here, change it, and you can actually come down here and actually zoom into specific counties or something like that. So that's all configuration. There's no code to do any stuff of that kind of stuff. So very useful. The last pattern that I wanted to show you guys and hand the presentation over to Sandra, or actually I think I have one slide after this and I'll hand it over, is this one. So this is a tongue-in-cheek little dashboard that somebody put together. We became aware of this right before Christmas. And obviously it's fake data, but it does bring in real-time data feeds. But in terms of pattern of use, people are actually embedding full-on applications within their dashboards and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say that there's an overly large amount of utility here, but you guys can get the idea. Like we can show you all that kind of stuff, or we can show you examples where there is utility. But this is kind of neat. I think pretty much everyone showed this to their kids around Christmas time. So making sure it was too bad for my son because whenever I show him maps, he wants to see Ottawa, and I zoomed in and we zoomed in, and there was no point over Ottawa, and so he was sort of like uncertain where he fell on the naughty or nice list. So I had to explain that one away. But anyhow, so back to the slides real quick. And like I said, I'll hand it over to Sandra. So that's, what's new this year. Number one, patterns of use. Dashboards are being used everywhere for many use cases. That's always been our intention. We sort of have a mantra where we say dashboards. Everybody needs a dashboard, and so within an organization, you sort of have your operational dashboards. One word and so those are real-time dashboards. You see lots of things moving. We have tactical dashboards, sort of like for middle management, and then we've got strategic dashboards that are used by the executives, and sort of the difference between these is, these types of dashboard is, the level in the organization or the person that's using them, but also the amount of time they spend on screen. With an operational dashboard, it's often on a TV screen, or a big wall-mounted TV in the operations center. Whereas, a strategic dashboard, would be on an executive's like tablet or something like that, and they'd just look at it quickly and they'd put it down, sort of thing, and get the information they want. So that's sort of everyone within the organization needs a dashboard, but we're actually expanding that idea, and we'll talk about that as part of the next session here. So with that, I'm going to quickly hand it over to Sandra. You're on number 4.
Okay. And with that, I'm testing the mic as well. Can everyone hear me? Excellent. Okay. Thanks, Pat. So I get to dive a little bit deeper into some of the configurations of these patterns of use and some of the what's new that we've tackled over the last year. And then I'll also be covering sort of what's coming as well in the next release, which is happening in a couple weeks. So we'll see some live demos, so bear with me. So the first one up here, we're going to dive into URL parameters. And Pat showed an example, and we'll dive into that one in a little bit detail as well. But I'm actually going to start from scratch here and just introduce you to this dashboard and show you how you would configure a parameter that you can pass into the dashboard to customize maybe the filters or the actions, what happens on the dashboard load. And you might be doing this to share this link or this dashboard with a colleague, with management, or as Pat showed, you might be embedding this in another application like a story map, okay? So this is historical data, fine, earthquakes around the world. We've got a list here that's sort of sorted by magnitude. Great. We've got some coloring of our dots, again, based on magnitude. We have some details. We have a generic count of all the earthquakes that are in this display. And we have a serial chart at the bottom based on year, so grouped by year to show the count of earthquakes per year. Great. But what I want to do is start customizing this to maybe launch the dashboard in a mode that only shows the earthquakes above and beyond a certain magnitude. Anything lower than, let's say, a magnitude of 8, I'm really not interested in. So our URL parameter settings are found at the dashboard level. So we're going to go into the dashboard level settings, and you're going to find a new tab here for URL parameters. And we provide 5 different flavors of these. So depending on the type of data and the information you want to pass in, you've got a number of options here. And based on that choice, you're going to have even further options on what actions or interactivity is going to happen as a result of passing in that parameter. So I'm going to start with a situation that I talked about, the magnitude. So I want to pass in a number, and I'm going to give it some kind of name that's making sense, and an operation. So I said earthquakes greater than or equal to a value that I'm going to pass in. And then I have a choice down here of what is going to happen when I pass that value in. What do I want to be filtered in this particular case? So remember, I had a list, I had a map, I had some details, I had a chart. So we can go ahead and actually add all of those as targets of my filtering action. Okay? So I can go in here, I've added in my map, I'm going to add in my list here, I select the field that I'm going to match it to, I can go in and add, let's add that indicator, okay, and I can go on here. So I've added a number of different targets that are going to get filtered when I pass in this parameter. So basically I can come up here and remember the name that I gave it, which was mag, and I pass in the value. And we're going to start to see, just hit enter, that now my list has been filtered, the indicator has also been filtered, and then the map would have been filtered as well. Okay? And that's a numerical parameter, so I had a filtering action that's available to that. But there's other types of parameters, and I'll show you another one here. Go back in, and this time I'm going to add a geometry parameter. Okay, and this is going to provide me a few other actions that I can apply to my dashboard on load. So in this case, I actually want to apply an extent. So instead of loading in the default extent of my map, I want to actually zoom to a particular area. I pass in some coordinates. So I'm going to pass in lats longs. And in this case, the action, I don't want to do a filtering, but I want to actually set the extent of the map based on the coordinates that I'm passing in. So it's as simple as that. I have one map in my dashboard. If I had multiple maps, I could set the target on all of those, but in this case, I just have one. So I've given it a name, and I've got the action that I want to apply. So again, I can come up here, and I can add this in addition to, and I can say extent equals, and then I'm going to hop out to Notepad and grab this number, come back over here, and I should see my map update based on that extent. Okay? So suddenly here, I now have a nice long string, a customized string that I could embed in another page. I could send this in an email to a colleague, and suddenly this, a little bit more complex dashboard with lots going on has been filtered. I've focused the purpose of the dashboard to show earthquakes above a certain magnitude and focused on a particular region. All the interactivity that I had originally configured in the dashboard is still there, so it still works. But now it's been customized for that reason. Okay? Quick question?
Can you override that as a user? So now you said it in here, can I get back to the
So the question is, can I get back to the full extent? Yes?
How does the user get back to the original state of the application?
Sorry, how does the user get back to the original state to the application?
Is there like a reset? I'm not very familiar with dashboard. Is there like a reset button somewhere?
You can get back to the full extent of the map if you've configured a bookmark there, or to go back to full extent. You could reload the page by just removing those URL parameters, and it'll go back to the standard way that the dashboard's configured.
So the only way the user would be able to do that is to go up into the address bar and change the URL manually by deleting the parameters to get rid of the filter.
To get rid of that particular filter?
I think the purpose of the perimeter is to just combine it specifically.
Right.
Yeah, it helps
The user
focus your attention.
may want to remove that filter, and the only way to do that is to remove the URL parameter.
So may I step in for a
Please,
second?
help, yeah.
So a good discussion around sort of the ability to clear a filter, for lack of a better word, by the user at runtime. So that's something that we're working on. We will add that in a future release. Currently, the set of use cases that we were intending with this functionality, they don't need that ability. We're focusing on the embedded case. We do have it in our backlog to not only have the ability to basically reset selectors, but also clear filters and that type of thing. So you'll see that eventually as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we save questions to the end? Do you think we'll try to leave some space? Cool.
Yeah, great. So I just want to move on to another dashboard. This is the one that Pat showed us a little bit earlier. We're just going to take a quick peek at the parameters here, and just to sort of remind ourselves of the different types. This one has a number of different URL parameters configured with lots of different filter actions. So this is the dashboard that was used in that story map, and I'll show you that story map again. But one of the ones that Pat showed in the demonstration as well is one of the URL parameters that was set up was tied to a zoom action. So as you're interacting with this dashboard through the story map, you would see the dashboard zoom to a certain area based on your selection. Okay, so there's lots of different actions that you can apply here, not just filtering, but you can control the way that the dashboard behaves as well through all those filter actions. So this is that story map again. Right, as we were paging through, we saw the dashboard update based on different filters that are applied. And then at the very last page here, this is where that zoom action is applied based on your selection. So as I click on a certain county, we see the dashboard zoom to that particular area. So that's great. So that's URL parameters, hopefully kind of tied up. And you've seen a little bit how they're configured and then how they're actually used. Okay. Another use case that Pat introduced us to is the embedded content. So I'm showing a similar dashboard. This one's from the state of Oregon. And they've actually embedded a Twitter feed into their dashboard. This is providing a little bit of extra information in terms of what's going on in terms of the weather in this particular area. So they've embedded a third-party little website into this dashboard to sort of extend the story here. So what I want to do is just back up a little bit, explain a little bit about how you add embedded content and a few tips and tricks along the way. So again, I have a very simple dashboard to show this example. And like all of our other elements and widgets, we're going to find the embedded content right from the add menu. So if I want to add in a new element to this very simple dashboard, I just have a simple map, and we're going to get to what's going on here in a second. But all I would do here is add this embedded content. And it comes in a couple of different flavors. You can add a static web map, or you can make something feature-based. And we'll talk about that example, because that one gets quite interesting. But we'll talk about the static one first, because this is how you could add in a YouTube video or a third-party application, by providing a direct URL into your website, into your dashboard here. So I'm going to do a little shameless plug for our colleague who's got a presentation happening later today at 6. It's in a session on tips and tricks on Operations Dashboard in one of the demo theaters. But this is the presentation from last year. And so what I want to do is actually just embed this YouTube video right in my dashboard. Okay? So one of the tips for embedding YouTube and other products is you need to go get the embed code. Okay? And we get a lot of questions about this because people are just trying to grab the actual URL to the YouTube page itself. We've got to actually go grab that embed link. And that's what's going to work for you guys. So I've taken that here. We can copy this. We can bring this over. And then there it gets embedded into our application. Okay, I don't have to worry about all the other parameters because that's taken care of by this element in dashboard. There are a few parameters that we can take advantage of, like start time and a few other things. But generally, you just need that embed code to get this video working. Okay, and I can come back out here. And I can actually go play that video. But the live presentation is going to be so much better today at 6, so I encourage you to go see it. Okay? So that's a little tip about YouTube. Now, also keep in mind, when you are embedding content, of course, make sure that it is embeddable, okay? That you have permission to embed it and that it actually is allowed to be embedded in other pages. Watch out for the HTTP versus HTTPS. That trips out a lot of people as well, so make sure that's consistent. But otherwise, yeah, this is the new embedded content that's available to you, okay? The other version that I'll just delete this so we can gain back some screen real estate here. So if we go back to the original configuration of this dashboard, I have a world map here, and I have a number of selectors here for different regions around the world. And I do have an embedded content here. It's a Wikipedia page, okay? But what I've done is I've created a relationship here between my buttons, my regions of the world, and this Wikipedia page. So as I click different buttons here, we're going to see that the page actually updates to reflect what I've selected. So there's a relationship between these two things. And I'll show you quickly how I've configured that. So if we go back into the configuration of this embedded content element, I've used the features option. Okay, I've used the base address to the Wikipedia page. And what I'm doing is dynamically building out the rest of that link based on the live data that I've got in my dashboard. So it's reading this continent information from the data source that I've chosen. So I can actually show you the data table here. So it's reading this information right from the feature table, and it's going to inject that into the URL and build that out dynamically as I'm making different selections. Okay? So that's the first step. You would build this embedded content. You would choose your data source and pick your field that you're going to extract that information from. The second step is to build that interactivity, to get them talking to one another. So I need to come up here to actually my buttons, which is a category selector. And under actions, I want to set up a filtering action. So as I make a selection, that embedded content element gets filtered based on my selection and therefore passes along that information to update that URL. Okay? So it's 2 steps. You configure your page, your embedded content, and then you figure out the connectivity, the interaction between the two. Okay? So that's your embedded content. So those are a few simple kind of examples, but we're seeing much more than that. And I believe Pat's got a demo that he wants to share with us. Just how to extend it even a little bit further, another use case.
Okay, so one thing we get asked a lot, especially at this conference, is your application customizable? You know, what's your developer story? And sort of we've purposefully not added one in that we've built functionality into the dashboard that will allow you to bring in your custom content, and that is the embedded content element. And people are now starting to actually author data visualizations specifically for bringing them into Operations Dashboard. So we just found this last week on GitHub. One of our colleagues found it, and this is by John Stowell. So in case he's either here or he's listening to this video at some point in the future, we want to give a shout out to John. This is not our idea, this is his. And what he did is he wasn't necessarily a fan of our details element and its ability to show attachments. So he wanted to show a gallery of attachments to his features. So what he did is he wrote a little PHP page, and what it does is it goes and for his data and his workflow, he goes and gets the last, and I think it was default to 80. He goes and gets the last 80 features, and he shows them into a gallery of photos, and then hosts that on a PHP page, and then brings that PHP page into his dashboard. Now, we thought that was useful and neat, but we thought it would be sort of in terms of a next step, it would be great if we could actually get that gallery working on a per feature basis. So we went in and tweaked the code a little bit. It's a pretty simple page. I think did I bring it up? It's just doing a loop through to basically go and get the attachments for a selected feature, creates a little bit of a dynamic gallery, and shows it up there. So it's pretty simple, but you can bring that into a dashboard. So now this dashboard doesn't have it. This dashboard is configured with our details element. And so the way that this one works is that whenever you select a feature, you have to iteratively go and look through the attachments. Obviously, I like beer, and so this is my favorite brewery in Ottawa, and these are the types of beers that they sell at all of their vendors. Which beers are available at which vendors, kind of thing. So now that in itself, the user has to interact with it quite a bit. So what I can do is I can reconfigure this dashboard real quick. I'll just come in here and I'll move this over here. I'll change the settings of this. So this is the details. I'm going to ask it to stop showing all of the information. And I'll come in and do this. Then what I'll do is I'll go and I'll add an embedded content element. I'll tell it that it's by features. I'll say that I only want one of these things. What I'm going to do is sort it by object ID. And similar to what Sandra did with hers, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go and inject a URL. So now it should come into here. I'll restyle it. And so now as I go through these, I forgot one step. What I need to do is I need to configure the interactivity on it. I need to come in here and say that when the selection changes, I also want to filter that guy. So now when I do it, it should update to, if I actually have some here, let's go back to the original extent because that's where I have the best data. And so let's go to the Carlton, and it's got these types of beers there. We can go up to absinthe. They've got these kind of beers here. So you guys get the idea, through the use of very simple coding techniques, you can create your own data visualization. That data visualization can be brought into your dashboard, and it can actually participate in the dashboard through the use of the selectors and the filters. So that's that demo. I'll pass it back over to Sandra.
Great. Okay, moving on, we've got a couple of new actions that have come online since we last spoke at the Dev Summit. So this sample dashboard here is tracking snowplow trucks, or at least that's what I'm pretending. Very familiar with those in Ottawa these days. So I'm an operations manager, shift manager. I see my trucks moving around my district. I see the 311 calls that are coming into my operations center and a little bit of information about them. So a couple of our new actions, we'll just use this dashboard to highlight those. And the first one is what we call a follow feature. And this allows you to get your dashboard into a mode of updating and centering on a particular feature that you've chosen. So in this case, everything's moving around, right? It's hard to sort of maybe follow each one individually and see where truck one is going. So what I can do actually in this particular case is I'm going to set up a new action on this category selector of type follow feature. Okay, and this will appear for point data that it has a refresh interval set to it. Okay, and it's going to follow that on the map. When I make a selection or actually activate this feature, I'm going to follow truck one. I've also set up a filtering action on here just to highlight this even more for us. But you saw that the map shifted. It centered that feature for me. Okay. It also has a halo effect to it, and you can customize that color, and we'll talk about where you do that. So it doesn't have to be that default blue color I think we have. So I've augmented here to be in yellow. And you'll see that as the truck moves, the map will continue to center on that feature. Great, right? I don't have to worry about that anymore. It just keeps following it around. The other thing that I'm also going to get is what we call a state bar that allows me to pause this action. Okay? So the map's going to stop centering, but I'm still going to get that pulsing halo. Great, so I can keep a track on that truck as well. I can move my map around. Maybe I need to do a little bit more investigation. And I can restart that following action and it'll recenter that feature for me. Okay, so this is a new action type called follow feature. Okay, we'll just bring back all the trucks here. And we're gonna drive the next action type, the new action we have called show pop-up from the list on the left here. But first of all, we'll just sort of show a pop-up in general. If you've got a pop-up configured in your web map, we honor that. So if you click on a map and click on a feature, you'll get your pop-up window. And it's nice because it does overlay the map, but you can dismiss it. Unlike the details feature that actually always maintains or takes up some screen real estate, the pop-up action you can dismiss. Okay, so by default, your map, if configured that way, you can click on a feature and get all that item detail information from your pop-up. But I don't necessarily want users to click on the map because that may be not as intuitive. I've got this nice list of calls here on the left-hand side with very limited information. I didn't want to provide too much detail because it would clutter the display. So instead, I've configured a show pop-up action to use that information, extract that information from the map's pop-up. So when I click on a feature, I see the pop-up appear. And if I have more than one feature selected, that's great. You'll start to see them stacked one on top of the other, and I can page through each of my different features. Okay, so that's the show pop-up action that's available to you. Okay, what I've also sort of hinted at here a little bit in this dashboard is some of the new settings that we have on color and configuration. And this is something we're really seeing that people are taking advantage of. Going above and beyond the sort of standard light and dark themes, they're really branding their dashboards, and we've provided many more opportunities to do that. So for example, I've customized the color, the selection color in my list as a nice contrast to the rest of what's going on this dashboard. So if we go into the configuration, you'll see a number of new color options here. So you can really get control over that user experience and maybe brand it to your logo, your organizations. So the list element has some new customizations, but the bulk of them are actually found at the dashboard level, where you can really dive into customizing the background colors, the separator colors between all of these elements. So one technique that we're seeing actually is to sort of blend each of the elements together instead of highlighting them in separate boxes like this. So you see it shows up on the screen, there's a slight coloration difference. So each of the elements has a defined border, which is great. But we're seeing a lot of examples where they're blending that out and making it all sort of seamless. And that can be done through your configuration settings. And this is where under your theme tab, you'll find all of your color options here. So I could quickly go in here, change my colors of my background color, my element background color, and my element outline color to all be the same. And suddenly everything starts to disappear and you get a nice seamless look to your dashboard. And that might be something that's of interest to you. Okay, you do have a lot more options here. So this is something new that was introduced last summer with the release of ArcGIS Online. Okay. One last thing here that I'll show in terms of what's new, and Pat's alluded to this, is the extended support for mobile phones or small form factor devices. So the restriction has been lifted that dashboards are available in read-only mode on these new devices. One thing to keep in mind when doing that, though, is to keep your audience and method of use of the dashboard in mind while designing for a mobile phone. You can imagine that trying to put this type of dashboard maybe on a small, iPhone and trying to interact with it, the gauge numbers would be very small. Interacting and trying to click a button, not giving the best user experience. also with our mobile users, often they know the purpose of the dashboard. They know what the information is already going to display. So you don't necessarily have to worry about a lot of explanatory text around it, and you can keep things very simple. So for example, I've got a dashboard here that on this screen doesn't look necessarily all that exciting. I've got a map, I've got a very basic list. There's not much going on here. There is one interactivity in this particular case. If you come into this list, we can see that the map will update. I've also configured a tab here as well that shows some very basic numbers. This is some water quality, water monitoring site information. So I don't have to explain it necessarily. I'm just giving very basic text, use of color, nice big numbers, because the intended purpose is not for this, but it's for the mobile device. So in the case of Chrome, I have access to the developer tools, which allow me to mimic what this is going to look like on a particular phone or device. Okay? And suddenly you start to see the reason why I configured things that way, because it's going to look a lot nicer on a handheld device. Even a map and some basic interactivity looks a lot better. And I would even argue that that list is too complex, probably want to pare that down, or maybe not even need it at all for a location. Okay? So keep that in mind. So yes, dashboards can be viewed on mobile devices, great. Keep your audience in mind. Are they going to be using this out in the field in the daytime, at night? Limit your use of interactivity. You don't need a header bar. You don't need much in terms of explanatory text. Okay, so that's mobile phone support. So these are all things that are new, that are out now with ArcGIS Online. Okay. I'm just going to quickly switch gears here. I've got 3 more things to show you about what you're going to be getting in the next little while. So coming in about a week and a half with the next release of ArcGIS Online, we're extending support for 3 additional languages. So Ukrainian, Hebrew, and Arabic. Okay? So this is an example of a dashboard that's showing some health statistics that's authored in Arabic language. And this was authored before we extended support for this language. So this is what it would be viewed in sort of today. If your browser locale, your user profile settings in ArcGIS Online, or through the use of a URL parameter, we can actually will honor the language settings. And coming in a couple of weeks, you're going to start to see dashboards that look like this. So I've actually applied a parameter here to honor the language that this dashboard was authored in. And you see that things are mirrored to reflect the right to left nature of this language. Okay? And not only is the runtime experience mirrored in this case, we see that the header bar is flipped over, we see that the map controls are flipped, but also the authoring experience is also flipped in the right to left language. Okay, so dashboards are for everyone. We've got 3 new languages now that will be coming out as supported, which is kind of neat. Okay. Another thing that we're bringing out is more extended support for rich text or customizations in this when dashboards are showing, let's say, no data, or the query has been done, but there's no data available. So let me give you the scenario here. So we've configured this, relatively nice looking dashboard. We're showing some housing price indexes, and it looks quite nice in this state. If I'm issuing a query, making a selection on my data, and it's an invalid query, what can happen is that some of our elements return no data. It's a valid query, but there's nothing there, okay? We gave you the option to customize the text that was displayed here, but that was about it. You could enter a different text, but you couldn't really configure it and make it look nice, okay? So what we've done now is extended the options here and added the ability for rich text in this environment. So you can come in here and add in different icons. Okay, you can actually configure your text with different headings, different fonts, and make it look a little bit nicer in the situation when no data is returned, instead of just having plain text. Okay. The last thing I want to show you is all about our category selector. Okay. In this case, the category selector is designed to filter my map. So as I choose a different municipality, it comes down here and I'm going to see this municipality filtered. Great. I've got this configured right now in single selection mode. So as I make different choices, we'll see different municipalities update. And if I want to revert back to the default state and showing them all, I've got this right now what's called the none option, and I should see my map update and all of the municipalities are displayed again. Great, fantastic, that's nothing new. If I configure this to a multiple selection mode, so I can come in here and select multiple different municipalities all at once. We see them added in. I'm going to scroll down, grab some at the bottom here. Great. I've got multiple municipalities selected. So how do I get back to my original state where I show all of them? Okay. Right now, we would have to unclick each one of these, and I'd have to scroll down, find this one, and keep going. Coming in about a couple weeks, we now have the ability, when you have multiple selection mode, to include the none option, okay, or an all option. And you can configure that text. It can be whatever you like. What this is going to do now is it's going to put this option at the very top for you. So if I come in here and again select multiple municipalities, I've got them highlighted here and filtered. Now I want to go back to my original state. I can choose none and they all come back. Okay, so that's what you'll be getting coming soon with the next release of ArcGIS Online.
Which is next week or the week after that or something like that.
Something like
so that's
that.
cool. So back to me, we've got 15 minutes left. Okay, I'm going to have to ram through this stuff pretty quickly. So in addition to the things that Sandra showed in terms of what you're getting in the next couple of weeks, there's a couple of other highly requested features that we're currently working on. And I'm going to give you a sneak peek at these. These are not ready yet. They will be. We'll release them when they are ready. But we do have them, and so here I'm without a net. This is sort of raw source code, so your mileage may vary with this. So quickly, the first one is the ability to do a group by on a list. So right now, a list is just by feature, but people have asked, they don't necessarily want to take up dashboard real estate by using a serial chart or a pie chart. They just want to be able to get that group by statistic and put it into a list. So I'm just going to go through quickly here, and I'm going to configure a list to, let's see, I was doing that. I need to sort it. Just a second. Dollars descending. And then on the list, what I can do is I can say it's group values now instead of just being by features, and I can group it based on sector. And I can add a series of statistics. So I can come in and actually I'll go and I'll do the sum of the dollars. I'll do the min of the dollars, and I'll do the max, and I'll just call it done. And there is actually a small bug in this branch, so I need to actually go in and paste in my rich text for the lists. But you can start to see you can get these types of things in here. So that in itself is pretty useful. But you can also use this type of functionality to do other capabilities. So if I quickly came in here and added another list of projects, that doesn't matter. This one's going to be by features. I'm going to use the same data source, but I'm going to do this real quick. So you've got something like this. Oops, that's not what I want to do. So you can come in and you can see individual details about individual projects. What I can do now is, I'm going to bring this over here. Come on. Will that actually paste there? No, just a second. So what I can actually do is move this over here and use techniques that we saw previously on other elements, where on my list, rather than doing something like this, I can dynamically link out to content. And here I'm just going to use an image. So I can do this. I need to come in here and sort this by some descending. So now I can get a dashboard that looks like this for all my different sectors. So what I can do now is I can configure some actions into it. So I say that when the selection changes on this, I want to filter the list. So that's cool. When I do a selection on this, I want to flash the location on the map, and I want to pan to that location. So now I can get dashboards where if I select an LRT project, and I can select it, and you can build this type of experience into your dashboards pretty quickly. So group by list, that's sort of on the what's coming list. The next one of those is it speaks to the idea of when a dashboard loads, they might be actually trying to process a lot of data, and it takes a long time for the dashboard to load because all the data has to be brought to the client and then processed and rendered. So a really popular request is I don't want anything to show up on my dashboard until it's been filtered, either through a URL parameter or by user interaction. But this feature is a little bit rougher in that we're not quite as far along in the implementation of it. But the basic premise is this: you have your data here, and this is just a list. And what we've done here is we've added a new option. So only draw me when I'm filtered, right? So this is what it will look like when it's filtered. But when it hasn't been filtered, it'll be blank. And similar to Sandra's point is you'll be able to put whatever you want there, some rich text, make it look nice to say, hey, you got to click something before you see data. So what it does is, whenever you select something, is it actually shows up the data. So it'll be a new interactive experience there. I'm going to quickly now jump back into the slides and start on this one. So I want to start giving you some more ideas in terms of our roadmap, the things that we're working on. So this is a list of the highlights of what Sandra showed. And so I'm just going to go through a lot of these ones with the asterisks and tell you, what we have in mind for the next steps. So for URL parameters, right now we support dates, but we don't support relative dates. So we need to add support for that. And so we'll get to that eventually, but that'll allow you to say, show me the content within the last 3 hours, within the last 2 days, and that kind of stuff. And it'll keep up to date as the dashboard refreshes. With the embedded content element, Sandra showed you we have static content and we've got features. And with features, you can actually dynamically inject the values of those features into your URL, and you can get a good user experience through that. What we also want to do with embedded content is we want to improve the static version of that to be able to have custom information injected into that as well. So for example, if you are making a selection on the map, or on any element for that matter, serializing that value and being able to pass that into the URL. Or when the map extent is changing, be able to serialize that and pass that extent or its center point or its level of detail and pass that into the embedded content. So you can just imagine all sorts of different types of applications that you can embed into a dashboard by having that information passed into it through its URL. We want to continue to do more work with our settings on colors and those types of things. We're seeing such beautiful dashboards. The attention to detail that people are putting into their dashboards is awesome, and we want to do everything we can to keep that kind of thing going. We know that our smartphone display is kind of like a workaround right now. It gets people over the hump, but we know it's not satisfactory. We want to do more work on that. We need to rethink some aspects of our layout and how it works. Right now, it takes up 100% of the view at all times. It's not intended to be responsive. It's for operation centers shown on a big screen TV. It's never going to shrink, so we're always taking up all the space. But through the patterns of use that we're seeing people demand from us, we know that we need to go back and take another look at that and make improvements there. So that's that. And then the last thing, this is the road, like the real road ahead. And so this is sort of a metaphor here is the future is bright. We got lots of great things coming. one of the big thing, one of the things that's occupying a lot of our time and a lot of our dev resources right now is that we are moving this application. It's in progress. We are moving it from the JavaScript API 3.x to the 4.x technology. And that's going to change a lot of things. It's going to be more performant. We're going to be able to show more data. We're going to have the opportunity to do more things in dashboards that you want, such as 3D elements, putting scenes into dashboards, being able to properly use Arcade. Our ability to support Arcade right now is pretty weak. But with the 4.x stuff, we'll be able to get it. Now, I'll put a big asterisk beside the Arcade thing in that with great power becomes great responsibility. You can write gnarly Arcade statements that slow things down, and that might affect you in a pop-up situation on a map. And you say, I'll take the hit, I don't mind it. But when you're actually rendering something like a list or a chart or something like that, you need to understand that some of those things are going to happen for each of those features. So Arcade, even though it'll be there, is, we're going to have to articulate the story as you want to have a light touch with it. If you don't have to do something dynamically, don't, put it into your data. But for those cases that you just need that little bit extra, that's the right use of Arcade. And of course, we want to put different types of data visualizations into dashboards. We don't have heat charts. We don't have highlight tables. We don't have bullet charts. And so these are all the types of things that people have been asking for us. And you'll see improvements in those things as we go in there. So that was really fast. I get it. But we do have a few minutes for questions. And I know that you have one because you had your hand up earlier. So we'll let you start.
You already took care of it, Arcade. I wanted to ask.
Okay, so he wanted to know about Arcade, and we took care of that. So excellent. So there's another question here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is it still just web map driven, or can you connect directly to a hosted feature service, hosted table service to bring data in?
So the question is it all web map driven, or can you connect to a hosted feature service or something like that? So there's two different ways you can get into data into a dashboard. One is through your map, and the other one is when you are configuring any given element. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a button called Select Layer, and you can click that button, and you can select map feature layers and a couple of different type of layers there. But it does have to be a layer. You can't directly go to the URL of a service, but as long as you have it in your organization's content as an item, then you're good. Is there any other questions down here?
Have you thought about the ability to draw a graphic on the map at all? If you're looking at lists, an example of that would be historical vehicle movements, not as points, but as lines.
Have we thought about graphics in the map? Yeah. And we've had some loose discussions with customers about that. It sounds to me like you've got a really specific use case. If you're interested, come by the island and lay that out for us in a little bit more detail. That's sort of a new one for us. Over here.
How many of the functionality that you highlighted today is going to come with ArcGIS Enterprise 10.7?
With ArcGIS Enterprise 10.7, so the question is, how much of the functionality we showed today is going to come with 10.7? Everything up to, what was the first thing you showed from the new?
The new languages.
So that was the first feature you showed? So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Fred Aubrey, lead developer on the team. And the multi-select drop-down won't be there. The right-to-left language won't be there. The rich text for no data won't be there. But everything before that will be there. All right. If you have some more questions, come up here, ask us in person. Thank you very much for attending.